Thank you for listening to Discovering the Scriptures by Dr. Parisis. Currently, we are in Daniel, chapter 5, verse number 29. Reading from the King James Bible first. Quote, Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. Unquote. Let's go to God in prayer on this. Father, help us never to take lightly what your word says for us to do. Help us never to take lightly the things that you tell us that are going to come to pass. Give us the wisdom and the knowledge that we need as we study your scriptures, meditate upon them, hear them. Please. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Now, Father, at the end of this prayer, I just going to give a moment of silence and just ask you to speak with each one of us. In Jesus' name I pray. Okay. Hit the pause button if you need more time. Now, let's go ahead and look at the Daniel 5:29. We're going to go ahead and read it from the Young's Literal Translation. Quote, Then hath Belshazzar said, and they have clothed Daniel with purple, and a bracelet of gold is on his neck, and they have proclaimed concerning him that he is the third ruler in the kingdom. Unquote. I'm having such a hard time with this verse. It's just the most profound action out of him. It's mind-blowing. Let's read it in the Interlinear Bible, the Raw Translation. Quote, Daniel, and they clothed him. Belshazzar gave the command. Then his neck around gold of, and put a chain with purple. In kingdom the third ruler he should be, that concerning him, and made a proclamation. Unquote. For real. Absolutely mind-blowing. Okay, let's look at this verse in context now. Daniel chapter 5, verse 25 through 29. King James Version, quote, And this is the writing that was written, Nina, Tika, Upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and are found wanting. Peres, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. They commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. Unquote. Okay, this is one of those verses that parsing, you just really got to figure out what's going on. Let's take a look at it together. Then commanded. Now remember, this is written in Aramaic by Daniel. He started the book out in Hebrew, went to Aramaic, the core language, during Nebuchadnezzar's time, his grandfather's time, and he continued on through to the 7th chapter, and then he goes back to Hebrew. So here, Belshazzar's time, he has been writing in the court's language of this book from Nebuchadnezzar through now. We'll see how far he goes with this. Did he write it after the events? Let's take a look. Let's parse it. PL stem, casually written, perfect aspect, completed. So he's casually writing this. Do I think he's writing it during the time frame that it happened? I don't think so. He might have taken his notes, but I don't think so. Let's go forward. Commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed. Let's go ahead and parse that. Aphiel stem. Now remember, that is a causative conjunction. Perfect aspect. Let's continue. And they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation. Let's go ahead and look at that. Made a proclamation. Cause of conjunction, and it's been done. APL, stem, perfect aspect, like above. And made a proclamation concerning him, that he should be, let's look at it, that should be, PL stem, in perfect aspect. So, casually written, not completed yet. He should be the third ruler in the kingdom. Okay, so this has all been casually written. Why? Well, let's take a look at two previous verses. Daniel 5:7, reading from the King James Bible, quote, "The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, Whosoever shall read this writing, and show me the interpretation thereof, shall be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Unquote. And then Daniel 5:16, quote, "And I have heard of thee, that thou canst make interpretations, and dissolve doubts. Now if thou canst read the writing, and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Unquote. Does it sound like he believes this interpretation at all? Let's see what the ancient commentaries have written about this verse, because it is mind-blowing. It just baffles me. Let's take a look. John Gill, you remember, he uses commentaries that to us are, up to and maybe even more 1,000 years old. So let's read it. Quote, "Then commanded Belshazzar, as soon as he had heard the writing read and interpreted, instead of being full of wrath, as might have been expected, he orders the reward promised to be given, to show he had a regard to his word and honor as a king, and to secure his credit with his nobles and people. And perhaps he might not understand, by Daniel's interpretation, that the destruction of him and his kingdom was so near at hand as it was, or he might put this evil day far from him, and hope it might be prevented. And they clothed Daniel with scarlet, the king's servants, by his order, or that they should clothe Daniel with scarlet. These were his orders, but whether executed is not certain. Probably not, since the king was slain the same night, and so the rest of the clauses may be read. And should put a chain of gold about his neck, and should make proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom, all which was the reward promised to him that should read and interpret from the writing in Daniel 5:7. But that this was done, the king's death being so sudden, does not appear, and therefore it is needless to inquire the reasons for Daniel's acceptance after his refusal." Unquote. Wow. Is this man still hungover? Is he still drunk? I would strongly doubt it. Strongly. Because remember, you don't have automobiles. Daniel has to be found. These astrologers have to be found. They have to be gotten up. They have to get ready to appear before the king, to walk or ride a donkey or a wagon to come there, or even a horse to come there. And then they have to see the king. And then he has to realize that they can't tell him his writing on the wall and what it means. So he has to creep after more people. And then finally he hears from the queen, and he goes after Daniel. Is it the same night? Is it hours apart? Is it the next day? We're not really told here. But some time has elapsed. Do you think he's kept drinking during this time frame? I would say no. I'd be so scared out of my wits, there'd be absolutely no way. But we're not told. We can only think and wonder and ponder. The one nice thing about this ministry is that when God decides to give me more knowledge and more wisdom after my initial recording, I can actually go in and update the recording. I can put in what he has given me even more. Here in this verse, Daniel has been told he is the third ruler, and told to all the people who are there. But what's missing? The customary proclamation. going out in the streets, making a noise, and proclaiming it to society, to the people. He's not done. It sounds like he is ticked off that he didn't get his way, somewhat hungover, dismayed. Okay, you're the third ruler. And that's it. But that's not just it. That's God doing what he needed to do and protecting Daniel, because now it's not made a big deal. Who knew that Daniel was the third ruler? Daniel was probably sent home after it was all done. A tired old man went home, period, and went to bed. Or went back home and prayed. We don't know. But we do know that Daniel was not slain that night like the king was. We're not told what happened here except that he was slain in the text that we have. Do other texts have other things about this? Yes. There's other text that says that this prophecy was fulfilled, but doesn't talk about the king being slain that night. But what do we go with? Does it matter? The king was slain, plain as day. Daniel wasn't. Daniel was protected by God. Had the proclamation been there, then Daniel would have been told by the entire society that he was the third ruler. Did he have the gold chain to prove that he was? Probably. In case the Jews called him out on it. Probably. But